perfect as ever. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Grumpy Snail podcast with your host, me, the Prince of the Punks, the Uncancelable, Jonathan Snyder, back again for another episode of the Grumpy Snail podcast. We're up to like 15 or 16, something like that. So, I'm at least getting them done. It's hard to believe, though, it's been that many weeks. What is that? Gosh, that's a lot of weeks. We're already halfway through pretty much everything for the year. We got the 4th of July, 4th of July, Independence Day coming up next weekend, which will be awesome. We'll get to celebrate America declaring independence from the British Empire. We got lots of stuff to talk about, stuff that's happened this week. I'll try to get to everything. We'll try to keep everything on this one camera today. Hopefully everything will turn out all right. I'm really trying to get this computer fixed. I've got a bunch of videos I've been working on behind the scenes and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's just been busy, like always. But we'll try to keep it on, right? Before we get started, if you like these videos, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can not only see more of these videos, but see the other videos that I make as well. And make sure you share those videos on all your social media. And we'll continue to do our best to create better content for your viewing enjoyment. So a lot of things have happened. I think sometime early Friday morning, late Thursday, there was this building collapse in Florida, and people died. Over 100 that were missing, that they're trying to account for. It's a very terrible thing. I know the president reached out to Florida, offered them help if they needed it. It's just a bad situation. Things like this happen, especially when there's crumbling infrastructure, but we'll get to that later. We had this incident in Fort Lauderdale, again in Florida, I believe, right? Where there was this pride parade going on, and there was this incident where this car crashed into these people. This gay men's choir was involved, and there was this big hullabaloo, and everybody's posting on their social media, on their Twitter, talking about the white supremacy and bigotry and intolerance and how this is terrible, having these attacks. And turns out that it was just an accident where one of the actual members of this gay men's choir just accidentally pressed the accelerator instead of the brake and smashed their vehicle into other people, because accidents happen. But that didn't stop the propaganda media from propagating their nonsense, and they had to backtrack, and by backtrack I mean delete all their posts and pretend that didn't happen. But some of us aren't stupid, and the internet is forever, so nice try. We had news of this is something that's been going on. We had the COVID, the pandemic, where basically governments told people that you weren't allowed to go to work, you had to shut down your businesses, people weren't traveling, people weren't going out, and caused these businesses to request money. And of course there was all these PPP loans that went out, and people like, I don't know, let's say this business.
American Airlines, rated the worst, losing the most bags, shrinking legroom during COVID. American requires passengers to show ID to fly, but attacks Texas's popular voter ID law. Why is CEO Doug Parker trying to appease the radical left? to distract from billions in taxpayer bailouts, from his $10 million payday, from Americans' record layoffs. Doug Parker, American Airlines. Serve your customers, not woke politicians.
Yeah, so American Airlines received a bunch of money from the government for, for the fact that they weren't getting all their commercial business from people traveling during the pandemic. Yet, instead of taking that money and, paying their employees, laid a bunch of them off. And then act like they need more money. That's how these businesses work. That's why we're currently not living in the capitalist society that we're supposedly are, that people claim that we are. We're actually living in some sort of oligarchy where, there's some sort of private public partnership between the government and businesses where these big businesses get to do whatever they want. There's no cost. There's no risk, and if they ever get in trouble, the government just bails them out. That's how it's been since 2008, and that's how it's going to be. You will not own any private property, and you will like it. So yeah, that's what we got. Also in the news, there was a story coming out of the UK where this Amazon distribution facility was destroying all this merchandise, and they weren't there. Like, it was kind of odd. It was this Project Veritas style story, and so this distribution center is, they have all this product, and if it's not purchased, there's only so much room inside of a building. And if they need that space, they just take things that aren't selling and they destroy them. They don't donate them. They don't, find some place for. They don't give them out to their employees. They don't, They just destroy them. They trash them. They throw them out, and then they get put in some landfill somewhere. And there's this big story about it, and it was funny because the media, small-time media, I'm not talking about mainstream propaganda, but the media is reported stuff on this, and they act so surprised. Companies been doing stuff like this forever. I mean, I work at a company, and the amount of garbage that company throws away when it could be recycled or reused or donated, it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty disgusting what industrialized civilization does, and I don't understand the surprise in this. So Amazon's throwing away grills and vacuums and high-dollar items, and they're you can't give them. If you gave them away, then people wouldn't be buying your products. You can't do that. You gotta be getting money, right? So, big surprise. Amazon is probably the biggest company, if not one of the big, if not the biggest company, they're one of the biggest companies, definitely in the pocket of government. They can do whatever they want. So I think it's funny that they act like surprise that this is going on. There's we're gonna mention this infrastructure bill situation. We're going to talk about a couple of the different things. But before we get to all that, we're going to say thank you to our sponsor, Coca-Cola. Always thank you.
Coca-Cola is getting political, attacking Georgia's popular voting law. Why? To distract from years of dismal sales, terrible 2020 results, reports suspecting they benefited from forced labor in China. Coca-Cola products are poisoning America's youth and worsening the obesity epidemic. So the company tried funding phony science to minimize the harms, but they got busted. James Quincey, Coca-Cola. Stop poisoning our children. Serve your customers, not woke politicians.
So before we get to the infrastructure bill situation, let's talk about HR 1, and in conjunction with that S1, of course. S1 was filibustered in the Senate because the filibuster is still there, and basically the Republicans stopped S1, I believe, from which is Manchin's adjusted bill, but it was stopped in the Senate from even being discussed, which a lot of Democrats, that's a Freudian slip, Democrats are complaining about. You know, how can you not even discuss this bill? This is racist and bigoted. But the bill goes against the verbiage of the Constitution. The Constitution allows for all voting processes. It's a made up word. Processes to be established by the states. The states are supposed to run the elections, and the whole deal with SR1 and or not HR1 and S1 is for the federal government to run everything, which is not what's in the Constitution. I mean, the states set up the elections, and the federal government upholds those elections, and it's. They hee-haw about how all these states are implementing these racist and bigoted laws because they want to have voter ID in their states, and I think it's pretty bigoted and racist to think that minorities can't or don't have ID and can't get them. It just. I don't know how many times I've seen polls where a majority of the country, I mean, we're talking 70, 80% or more, that are in support of ID laws when voting. So I don't see argument. But yeah, so that was stopped for right now. Of course, it's gonna come back. The liberals, the left, the establishment have an agenda, and they're gonna keep pushing it till they get it through. So I guess we're gonna stop by that and move on to something else till it comes back around, because they've got to do something. They've got to do something before midterms rolls around, because if things keep going the way they are, the Democrats are going to lose everything in the midterms. So we will definitely see this voting rights bill, as it's being called, the We the People or whatever. We will see that come back. Of course, we're going to go ahead and talk about the infrastructure bill that they're trying to pass. Of course, the Democrats and Joe Biden want to pass like $6 trillion or some nonsense. In total infrastructure, of course, we're calling everything that they want to spend money on, we're calling infrastructure. All of, the climate and the tax increases and all that stuff is lumped together in infrastructure. So, there's this great big push-pull battle going on between the Democrats and Republicans, what we're going to put in an infrastructure bill. Joe Biden wants to spend like $2.9 trillion, and the Republicans want to spend like $600 billion, and I don't know if we're using regular math or critical theory math, but there's a great big discrepancy in those numbers. So Joe Biden announced that they had struck a bipartisan deal in which they're going to spend $1.2 trillion on infrastructure. But then, now they're talking about how he's only going to do that if, of course, they sign in all this other stuff that he wants, how is that a bipartisan deal? Yeah, we'll agree on this one thing that you want as long as I get everything that I want. I don't see, that's not bipartisan. That's a lie. That's a lie. Sounds like a lie. I think it's a lie. But I mean, that's what you do, right? It's lies. And we'll get to some more of those lies here in a little bit. Of course, we got Kamala Harris finally she's going to go to the border and fix this immigration problem because, you know, we have a big problem, and it's, you think that if you just don't talk about it like, you know, our propaganda machine is doing, that it would just go away. But it's actually not going away, it's getting worse. We have the worst immigration situation, because we can't call it a crisis, that we've had in the last 20 or so years. And, you know, people are coming across the border, not just from Mexico, not just from Central and South America, but they're catching people on the terrorist watch list from places in the Middle East. It is a total and ungodly mess, and it's terrible that the vice president, who was put in charge of this situation, refused to go to the border until Donald Trump said that he was going to go to the border, and now she's got to rush down there and try to save face, which is, you know, impossible because it's Kamala Harris, you know, who couldn't even win an election in her own state. So good luck, Kamala Harris, in solving this situation that you guys created. Yep. Before we move on to anything else, let's go ahead and have a word from our sponsor.
Nike is constantly political. Why? Cover. Congressional reports suspect Nike used forced labor in China. Religious minorities were ripped from their families, sterilized, sold to factories. Nike made shoes in those same areas. Congress tried to ban Nike's labor practices. Nike fought back with highly paid lobbyists. Rather than hiring Americans, Nike chose China. John Donahoe, Nike. Stop exploiting foreign labor. Serve your customers, not woke politicians.
Yes, thank you, Nike, for sponsoring this video like you do every week. We really appreciate it. Keep those dollars rolling in. I would like to take this time and declare that I, Jonathan Snyder, will never, ever, ever commit suicide. I believe that suicide is the coward's way out. I would never, ever, ever kill myself. Ever. Of course, John McAfee said that too, and wound up dead in a Spanish jail cell. Just like Epstein. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. There will be no questions asked, no questions answered. He will disappear into the ether and never, ever be remembered. Until, of course, your antivirus, runs out. One thing I want to talk about is I listen to a lot of things. I source my news from a lot of different places, and I listen to a lot of commentary on the news and things that are happening. And I almost never 100% agree with anybody I listen to. I haven't found that person yet that I can 100% go, yeah, I agree with everything you say. There's always somebody where I'm like, you know what? Like 80% of everything you say is great, but there's like 20% where you're an idiot. And I know that person's not an idiot. We just don't agree on things. But you know that's not the end of the world. And it doesn't mean that person's terrible because I don't agree 100% with them. But one of the people that I listen to is Tim Pool, and this past week on the Friday show, one of his guests was Yeonmi Park, and I've heard her story mentioned multiple times on many different shows. I never seen an interview with her. So she is a North Korean defector. Would that be the term? I don't know. She escaped North Korea and made her way eventually here to America, where, like, we're the country where there's the most freedom in all of the world, and her story is just amazing. And I encourage anyone to look her up, watch her interviews with anybody, and she has her own YouTube channel, which is interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, if you think that North Korea is a problem country, if you think they're oppressive, if you think that they treat their citizens terribly, you should probably take a look at some of the Democrat progressive policies that are being pushed, and think about that. I mean, we had the Joint Chiefs of Staff testify to Congress, I believe, speaking upon the teaching of critical race theory or critical theory in the military, and how they encourage them to read all these books and stuff. And it's interesting to hear that the military has such a concern for race relations within our country, when people like Russia are threatening war with the UK, and China is, saying that they're going to back Russia if there's any conflict, and saying that, Taiwan isn't a place, and that Taiwan belongs to China. And I think instead of worrying about the white supremacy and all this nonsense, which we'll get into a tad bit later, they should be more concerned with, a Russia-China alliance against Western countries. But, I mean, you guys be the judge of that, I guess. So, before we talk about our favorite person, our president, commander-in-chief, Creepy Joe Biden, we're going to say thank you to our final sponsor of this episode, North Face.
North Face is truly an extraordinary customer of the oil and gas industry. I'm Chris Wright, CEO of Liberty Energy. North Face recently came out against my industry, even refusing to let one of my competitors put their company logo on a North Face jacket. I went through North Face's website of wide-ranging products, and I failed to find a single product that wasn't made out of oil and gas. The great majority of North Face's products, jackets, backpacks, outdoor pants, shirts, shoes, hats, etc., are dominantly made out of the oil and gas that we so proudly produce. Globally, 60% of all clothing fibers are made out of oil and gas. For North Face, it is likely 90% or more, simply because they make premium, high-performance products. But our customer relationship goes much further than simply supplying North Face with copious raw material. Their vast manufacturing, distribution, and retailing networks are also large consumers of gasoline, diesel, natural gas, propane, jet fuel, etc. But heck, I could say that about any manufacturing company. Perhaps they went the extra mile with those outdoor natural gas and propane fireplaces at headquarters and the private jet terminal. Again, many others check those boxes. Where North Face does go the extra mile is their focus on the outdoor industry, an industry which only came into existence because of oil and gas. Without the enormous leap in human wealth and health catalyzed by the arrival of oil and gas, there was no spare time or wealth necessary to pursue such luxury endeavors as outdoor sports. Escaping the modern world to the great outdoors typically begins with modern energy and transportation, whether by car, bus, train, or plane. Our outdoor choices keep expanding because we now have all these fabulous outdoor toys made of oil and gas, like skis, snowboards, wakeboards, bikes, kayaks, canoes, sailboats, hot air balloons, climbing gear, ropes, etc. We can spend days in the outdoors with our lightweight backpacks, tents, sleeping bags, cooking with our camp or backpacking stoves. Climbing the world's highest mountains wasn't even imagined before oil and gas, for all the reasons that I've already mentioned. Plus, there is no water high on mountains. Fortunately, we can carry canisters of white gas or other petroleum fuels to melt snow off glaciers for drinking water and cooking, even at 26,000 feet elevation. I could go on and on about the beauty of wilderness, the joy of being in the backcountry, the character-building experiences made possible, the team adventures, and serenity of the great outdoors. All only possible thanks to oil and gas. So North Face is not only an extraordinary customer of the oil and gas industry, they are also a partner with the oil and gas industry in bringing the great outdoors within reach of so many. So thank you, North Face, and you're welcome. Onward and upward.
So yes, indeed, Creepy Joe Biden was back in the news again. He's a gift that just keeps on giving.
What are you seeing? Now, are you getting in this picture? Pleasure to meet you. Keep the boys away from your sister. That's the job.
So he couldn't, like, it wasn't just bad enough that now that they had the issues with this S1 and HR1 in Congress not getting what they want out of it. We're gonna try to kind of move a little bit and switch back to the violence and the increase in crime because the Democrat policies are terrible, and of course the solution is to get rid of guns. But not only was Joe Biden doing this terrible speech about gun control, but the next day he comes out and does this weird ass creepy whispering shit.
I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for child care. I wrote the bill on the environment. Pay them more. This is an employees bargaining chip now. What's happening?
This guy is creepy and crazy, and I can't believe that 80 million people voted for this guy. It's truly insane. But to really get to the nuts and bolts of how insane it is, of course, like I said, came out with the Attorney General or whatever, did this freaking crime prevention strategy speech thing, saying all kinds of nonsense. We're going to get to it right now.
I've been at this a long time, and there are things we know that work that reduce gun violence and violent crime, and things that we don't know about. But things we know about, background checks for purchasing a firearm are important.
Yes, background checks are important. That's why we have them.
Ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds.
I don't know why he keeps spatting the same stuff over again, but we're gonna go through this one more time, I guess. First of all, you're not trying to get rid of 100-round magazines. You're trying to get rid of 30-round magazines. You're trying to get rid of standard magazines that come with these firearms. So let's call a spade a spade. Be honest to start with. Second of all, You're missing the forest for the trees, guy.
Unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something.
Why do you keep on splatting this nonsense about deer and Kevlar vests? The Second Amendment is not for hunting. That's not what it's there for, okay? And we're gonna get to the more of the nonsense.
Unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something. Community policing and programs that keep neighborhoods safe and keep folks out of trouble. These efforts work, they save lives.
Yes, yeah, they do work, and they do save lives. Maybe you can explain to me why your fellow Democrats are trying to reduce policing in high crime areas and trying to defund police in those type of situations.
But over time, these policies were gutted and woefully underfunded.
Yeah, by your Democratic policies.
In our conversation today, we talked about our strategy to supercharge what works while we continue to push the Congress to act on sensible gun violence legislation. First, we discussed cracking down, as you heard from the Attorney General, on rogue gun dealers.
What are these rogue gun dealers that you're talking about? Are you talking about people selling guns out of the back of their van? Those are criminals. Those aren't rogue gun dealers.
We know that if there is a strict enforcement of background checks, then fewer guns get into the hands of criminals. Background checks have thus far kept more than 3 million guns out of the hands of felons, convicted felons, fugitive, domestic abusers, and others prohibited from being able to purchase a gun. And there's still too many loopholes in that system.
No, there's not.
And today, enough rogue gun dealers feel like they can get away with selling guns to people who aren't legally allowed to own them. And I might add, guns to people who aren't legally allowed to own them. And I might add, the Second Amendment.
Yeah, they're getting them illegally. They're not following. Criminals are going to criminal. Okay, the people, these rogue gun dealers aren't walking over to your local gun shop and purchasing firearms off the wall. What are you talking about?
To own them. And I might add, the Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon.
No, it did. Why do you keep pushing this lie? Why do you keep pushing this lie? During that time when we didn't have automatic weapons, there were still automatic weapons. There were automatic flintlocks. People did own cannons. The government hired privateers, people that owned their private warships. Stop spouting lies about how people didn't have cannons, because they did.
Those who say the blood of patriots,
Why are you butchering this phrase? Okay, first of all, Thomas Jefferson, one of the greatest founding fathers that we ever had, and it's not even the blood of patriots; it's the blood of tyrants.
And all this stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
Wait. Did you just threaten? Did you just threaten the U.S. citizens with nuclear weapons and F-15s?
Never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
No, you don't. You're an idiot for saying this stuff. All right? You never hear of the Taliban? They didn't have F-15s and nuclear weapons. You ever hear of the Viet Cong? They didn't have F-15s and nuclear weapons. All you need is a well-armed... even the Native Americans who had sticks and bows and arrows were still a pain in the ass to the U.S. government, all right? You don't need to be having nuclear weapons and all that nonsense, okay? All you need to do is be a big enough thorn in the side of authoritarians, some fascists that want to come in and push their agenda on all of your liberties. No. I'm not going to sit here and listen to your lies anymore, all right? So I'm not even going to, this whole speech is like 30 minutes long. I'm not listening to it anymore, all right? That's all the time we have for this weekend. Join us next weekend for the 4th of July celebration podcast, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen, and bye.